Okay, we are to question number 35. This format should look familiar to you, students, since we did this kind of format in some worksheets and then also on your last quiz. Number 35, solve the equation y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8 using all three methods below. We've got to use factoring, completing the square, and quadratic formula. I've explained to you in class, pick the one that you feel most confident with and the one that you believe you can be most accurate with. I'm going to choose factoring, especially since a is equal to 1, so the factoring part is going to be easy. Let's go ahead and factor this first. Step number 1, let's write the equation. X squared plus 6x plus 8. When we factor, class, we set it equal to 0. The reason why is because we're going to solve. Solving means find the x-intercepts. We know that y equals 0 whenever we're looking for x-intercepts, so we can set the equation equal to 0. First thing we do is after writing the equation and setting it equal to 0, let's find the GCF. Well, the good news is, since a is 1, the GCF has to be 1. So now we can go ahead and identify A, B, and C. Also, just be aware, A is not negative. That means we don't have to pull out a negative one. If you get a question on the test where A is negative, even if it's negative 1, you're going to have to pull the negative out, the negative 1 out as a GCF before you can actually factor. Our A value is equal to 1. Our B value is equal to 6. Our C value is equal to 8. Let's go ahead and figure out what our combination is. Write that a little bit neater if I could. So A times C is 1 times 8, which is 8, and B is 6. We'll try 1 and 8 first. That's no good because 1 and 8 can never add up to equal 6. Let's try 2. 2 is a factor of 8, and 4 is a factor of 8. 2 times 4 is 8. We got 2 and 4 as our combination. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 plus 4 is 6. And here's the good news. We have a value of A which is 1. That means we can go directly to our factored form, which is going to be x plus 2. Don't like that. Let me fix that. X plus 2 times x plus 4 equals 0. So the 2 and the 4 became our numbers that are inside of the binomials. And now we can go ahead and figure out what our solutions are. What's going to change x plus 2 to equal 0? Because that's going to change the whole thing to be 0, which will make it true. And what is going to make x plus 4 equal to 0? Well, you subtract 2 from both sides here, and you get x equals negative 2. Subtract 4 from both sides, you get x equals negative 4. And so our solutions down here are x equals negative 2 and x equals negative 4. Now, if you want to make sure that this is correct, it's very easy to do. Go ahead and take these two values and plug them into your equation and verify that's going to make it equal to 0. So you're going to put negative 2 into here and check and see what it equals. And you're going to check negative 4 into the value of x. And if you check both of those equations, let's kind of just do this in our head. Negative 2 squared is 4. 6 times negative 2 is minus 12. So 4 minus 12 is negative 8. Plus 8 is 0. That checks out. And then we've got negative 4 squared is 16. Minus 24. 16 minus 24 is negative 8. Plus 8 is 0. Again, use your calculator for that, but you verify both of those are correct. Now you know that every other answer has to be -2, -4. I'm going to do the quadratic formula next. Let's go ahead and write our equation. Remember, with quadratic formula, we also want to set it equal to 0. So it's going to be x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0. With the quadratic formula, the first thing we want to do is get the c term to the other side. So we can, oh sorry, that's for completing the square. Let's skip that. Silly. Quadratic formula, all we got to do is write the equation and identify a, b, and c. A is 1, b is 6, c is 8. Our next step is to find the determinant. B squared minus 4 times a times c, which is parentheses, there's our b value, 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 8. Put that in your calculator, and you should get 4. That means that our x values, our x-intercept, are going to be -b. Now here's the quadratic formula. Plus or minus the square root of our determinant, which is 4, over 2a. Let's plug those in. b is 6. It's going to change to -6 because we flipped the sign of b in our quadratic formula. -6 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2 times 1, which is -6 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. So now we've actually got our answers. Let's do some final work. Let's check and see if the square root of 4 is a perfect square, and it is. It's 2. So our final answer can be written as x is equal to -6 plus square root of 4 is 2, so -6 plus 2 over 2, -6 minus 2 over 2. And remember, class, put your numerator in parentheses so you know how to put it in your calculator. You got to have those parentheses in there if you want to put the whole fraction in the calculator at once. And now we can solve this. Put that in your calculator and you will get -6 plus 2 is going to be -4 over 2. That's -2. And -6 minus 2 is -8 over 2, which is -4. And we end up with the same answers. So far, so good, class. I got to let you know, if you do this carefully and get every step right and do it, everything written out clearly and neatly, you don't make a mistake, and you don't have to go back and fix your problems. Some of you rush through, you don't write neatly, you skip steps, you get things all squished around and moved around where you can't make heads or tails of it, and then when you get the wrong answers, good luck in figuring out where you made your mistake. So do it neatly. So if you do happen to make a mistake, you should be able to start from the end and work your way back and figure out where you made an error. It's almost always due to a negative or a positive sign being flipped. And now the last one, completing the square. First thing we do is let's write our equation. X squared plus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0, because again we're looking for the solutions or the x-intercepts. Now I can go back and do what I said we're supposed to do. For completing the square, you got to move the c term to the other side. So now we got x squared plus 6x equals, don't mess this up, class, this is now -8, not +8. When it moves to the other side, the equal sign, the sign flips. All right, let's take a moment here. I'm going to draw a little squiggly because we're going to pause for a moment while we figure out a, which is 1. That means we can continue on because a's got to be 1. b is equal to 6. c is equal to 0. We've moved the c term, so now on the left side there is no c term. Looking good. A has to be 1, we're good. C has to be 0, we're good. Let's go ahead and figure out what b over 2 squared is. That's going to be 6 over 2 squared, which is 3 squared, which is 9. There's our number for completing the square. And then we have to also know what b over 2 is. b over 2 is 6 over 2, which is 3. So there's the end of our pause. That's our pause to get some numbers that we need. Okay, next step to complete the square. Make a space on both sides and put in the number that completes the square, which in this case we figured out is 9. The next step is factor the left side and simplify the right side. We factor this, we know that this is going to be x plus or minus some number squared, and that number is 3. We figured that out as b over 2. It's positive 3. Whoops. Let's write that in so we can see that we've added that in. It's positive 3. Oh, I just wrote positive 9. That's positive 3 equals, we can simplify the right side. Negative 8 plus 9 is just positive 1. That ends our completing the square. Now we can use square root to solve this because this is now pretty much in vertex form. Let's go ahead and do that. The way we do that is we use square root, and when we square root both sides, let's pick a different color here. We're going to square root both sides. When we do that, the right side becomes plus or minus because there's a positive answer and a negative answer. The square root cancels the square, and we end up with, let's do this in purple. We end up with x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 1. Move the 3 to the other side, and we end up with x equals negative 3. You move the positive 3 over to the other side of the equal sign. It's negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 1. Let's put that in our calculator. Negative 3 plus the square root of 1 is going to be negative 2. And negative 3 minus the square root of 1 is going to be negative 4. That matches our other answers. So we are good to go. I will let you know the equation on the test will be a bit more complicated in that it probably will take you more combinations to actually find out how to split the b value. So it might take you a little bit more work, and there may be a little bit bigger numbers. But don't worry about the a, b, and c values being big. Write them down. Your calculator does really the hard work. All right, that's the end of number 35.